So today we will be discussing challenges for women in the 21st century. We know that this is a Munroe Emerging Leaders Conference, where our theme of the event is Emerge and Lead. So I'll let you guys give your view on the topic, and we can start the discussion from there. So, Talia.
Good afternoon, everyone. Challenges for women in the 21st century. Well, I think our biggest challenge, of course, is equality, being looked at as equals when it comes to being compared to men. I think that's always a big challenge for us, especially in the corporate world, in the business arena. But I think as time progresses, women are now making bigger strides, so it's becoming a little easier for us. It hasn't eliminated the problem, but I think as time goes on and we begin to climb the corporate ladder, I see the problem not being as big as it was before in terms of us being able to be looked at as, you know, we can run a corporation as good as a male can, or we can be the CEO. So I think that as women, we've been doing a lot better in terms of proving ourselves to the world.
And piggybacking off of Talia, good afternoon. I think one of the challenges is actually that because women are now moving into that era of we are equal and we could take over the corporate world and we could lead just like a man, people don't know what to do. Men don't know what to do. People are like, okay, so this is a new phenomenon. You know, how do we act with this and how do we deal with this? So now we're at that point where as women, we have to now educate on how to deal with having us in leadership. And, you know, I see that as maybe a challenge that people just, they don't know how to deal with this new radicalness of women just kind of taking over, you know, we run the world type of thing.
Good afternoon. I think the biggest challenge that women face now is in the 21st century is managing the and. So we are now being considered equal. We are beginning to run the world. And now we as women have to figure out how do we manage our and. So we're mothers and CEOs. We're CEOs and sisters and friends and all these other things. And so I think with the multiplicity in our roles, it's sort of becoming an expectation that we do all and we do everything. And so figuring out how to temper that and how to manage that with who we really want to become and how we're going to contribute, I think is our greatest challenge right now.
So I'll start the questions. I'm just going to open the floor up for questions. Anyone that may have a question, you could just raise your hands and we'll have a runner with a mic to bring the mic to you. But my first question is, what is the most challenging thing each of you has experienced professionally to date? I'll start with Stacey.
The most challenging thing I've dealt with professionally has been, okay, so because I started adulting very early, I know a lot because I've lived a greater portion of my life as a younger person. And so I often find myself in the company of older, wiser, more seasoned people. And so I face being young and being a woman. And so it's a very difficult thing when I know something and I do actually understand, because like sometimes I'll be in the room and like me and this other CEO both have 13-year-old children. So it's like, yeah, you know, I understand this thing that you're dealing with. So figuring out how to have a voice as a woman and as a young person who may be a little bit before my time has been a very difficult thing, because you can't always assert yourself and speak up and not expect for there to be pushback. So finding my lane and figuring out really how to navigate that. And then I think second to that has been balancing that against being a mother and the expectations that come with that.
Professionally, two of the challenges, I have to mention two of them. And I want to use challenges over difficulty because challenges can, you know, they can be worked out. You can actually work around them. And one of the challenges that I have at my job is being young. And not only being young, but looking young. So I work with adult patients from anywhere from the age of 18 to the extinct age. And, you know, they're like, well, who are you? And how do you know what I'm going through? And how do you know how to counsel me? And you don't know what I'm doing. And so over time, it takes them getting to know me, working with me, and then building that trust and that rapport before they start to say, okay, this young-looking gal ain't so young after all. And they say, well, how do you know, what you couldn't have had that much experience? I said, well, the little experience that I do have, no, I haven't been through life like you have, but I've dealt with so many of other patients like you. And, I did go to school, so there's the book, but they're like, no, but book and reality are always different. And so you just have to bring them to a place of trust, and then they finally get past that, okay, she's young, she looks young, but she's a lot wiser than she looks. And then the other part, I don't get this too much in the Bahamas, but in the US, believe it or not, still being black is still a challenge. Where I work, there's a 50-50, but my managers are white, or they're of a different race. And so, there's already this stigma that not only am I your manager, but I'm also white. So that already carries I'm the boss, you're the slave, you don't, whatever I say goes, your opinion doesn't matter type of attitude. And so, to be very honest, I've had a very good teacher in Dr. Miles Munroe. So I've learned how to deal with that. And I've learned how to professionally and succinctly speak. And believe it or not, they respect me, black, young woman, but I'm respected. And we're talking older women, we're talking, I have a manager now we have new managers, the two older ones retired. So one is young, he and I were on the same level before he started, and now he's my manager. And he and I go head to head. But we go head to head in a very professional manner. And so again, just gaining that level of trust and respect continues to be a challenge.
I think my biggest challenge professionally is pretty much the same as Charisa's, with my age, being young, and like I said earlier, coming into to work at Munroe Global, where a lot of things were set in place by the older people that would have been working there from it started. So coming in and having to prove yourself, like, no, I didn't get the job because I'm Richard Pinder's daughter or I'm Charles' cousin, but actually coming in and saying, okay, I got the job because I can do the job. So I think that was kind of my biggest challenge, getting over the barrier of people thinking that because you're a certain age, and also a barrier was me realizing that there's nothing wrong with getting a job because of who your parents are or because of who your family. It's called access, and it's a door that they can open for you, and it doesn't mean that you can't do the job. You just have to walk through the door and prove that you can do it.
So what are your views on, I know Stacey, you're a mother of a teenage son, and going around speaking to these various events, do you get, do you feel a being, I guess I could say black, I don't know it's the politically correct term, and I can say, yes, you are. I didn't mean it, whoa, sorry. Anyway, being black, use your words, Carol, Jesus.
It's okay.
Being black and being a mother and doing something that, most folks, because you and I had a conversation, and most people aren't aware that you have a teenage son. Is there, when they first meet you and they don't know, after you reveal that, do you see a change in the way that they speak to you or the way that they, act around you? Is there a difference?
There's a significant difference. So generally when people meet me, they assume because I talk about happiness and I sell happiness and I'm smiling and, I dress very stylish, that there isn't as much substance, because it seems as if whatever is on the surface is just like this thing that you're getting, and happiness is this just happy-go-lucky. There's nothing deep that's there. So as soon as they find out that I've actually been parenting, I find that there's another level of respect that comes. And actually, so my first company before I had a speaking company was an HR consulting firm. that I started like 6 weeks after I graduated with my master's degree. And in this firm, my initial clients, it was immediately successful because I partnered with a larger firm that gave me junior level things. And so with this firm, I'm literally in the room consulting with Fortune 500 CEOs on training programs and just different things like that. And so I walk in smiling, bubbly, probably with some sparkly heels on, and I'm Black, and I'm faced with, you know, seasoned white gentlemen who are running a company. And so my partner would say, Stacey's gonna be leading this account, and they would say, her? And I would have to be like, yes, you know, I'm going to be leading it. And it's so funny. You look just like my son when I told him this. And so then I try to segue and bring that in to add credibility to what I can actually bring to the table. And then they're like, oh, you have a child. And then I have to tell them how old he is so that they realize that I'm not 21. And so it becomes something that initially I strayed away from because I didn't want to be labeled the statistic, but it turned into something that I could leverage in conversation so we could find common ground so that we can begin to converse. Because again, your grandchildren, your children are my child's age, and we share that. So adds a dimension of respect.
How long did it take you to develop that? Because I know, you know, you're, can I say age?
Yeah.
Okay, you're 32, right? And you've been a professional for how many years?
Professionally speaking, for about 4 or 5 years, and then after my master's, so what's that, like 8 years after my master's, 8 or 9?
Okay,
so
to develop the automatic response of, oh, you had that same expression when my son had that same expression when I told him this, and oh, by the way, you know, my son is 14 and he loves to do this and that. To sort of, I guess, break the ice, you know, with meeting a new client. How long did it take you to perfect that?
It probably took me about 2 years to perfect it. And it's interesting because like so my whole undergrad time was spent me being first generation trying to figure it out. By the time I went into my master's program, I'm like, okay, my kid is 5. I gotta hurry up. Like, I gotta figure this out. Like, I can't still be scared. I can't lack confidence. I have to figure something out because we gotta make this money thing happen. We gotta make this understand life thing happen. And so I went into my master's program consciously saying, okay, you're getting a master's, so that means you belong in the room. So I kind of rode on the skirt tails of my education. Then when I got comfortable using my education as credibility, that segued into me using my life experiences as credibility. But it was about 3 years before I really was like, being a young parent doesn't make me a bad person. It makes me a parent, and it means I've been doing something that some people have just begun doing, and I'm doing a good job. Like, my son is awesome. Like, he's an amazing kid. So.
Well, he has an amazing mother, so
Thank you.
Kudos to him. So Talia, I know we have some questions. I'll get to you guys very quick. Just want to ask Talia and Charisa a really quick question. Talia, first of all, you came along and started with the organization. You were very timid, very laid back. You know, you was a bit hesitant in sort of making decisions, and you know, the push that I've always given you to, you know, look, you can make as much decisions as you want, and we'll discuss, you know, why or how or how that could have been better if necessary. How has that molded you, or no, let me say this. How has someone that supervises and is over you helped you to become the person that you are, especially when that person supports you in making decisions or being more of an independent employee? You don't understand the question? Okay. How? Having a boss that supports you in making a decision or being free with making your decision, how has that molded you to becoming now a person that is a bit more confident in making decisions regardless of how the outcome may be?
Well, like Charles said, when I first came in, I loved event planning, but planning an event, as in a party, and then planning a conference, 2 completely different things. So I had to really like switch from, okay, planning a birthday party, planning a conference, it's actually like registering people, following through, and all this kind of stuff. So it was a lot of things that I was hesitant in just because I didn't want to make the wrong decision. I didn't trust myself enough that this was the right decision to make. So I kind of figured out what Charo was doing when he would say, and it started out, I think, when I planned the Global Leadership Forum in 2014. And the first time he did it was when we had to sign contracts with the hotel, and he was like, I want Talia to sign. And I was like, me? I was like, okay, we're talking about a lot of money here. When I sign this, that means I have to read all of this, understand it, I'm responsible because I signed.
You do. Yes.
So that was scary for me because that was the first time he really was like, Talia is signing. So it put pressure on me because it was like, okay, I'm really the conference manager now. I have to sign contracts. So I think signing contracts was the first thing that made me realize, okay, I have to get more focused in, I have to understand things a bit more, get more in depth, because signing a contract to me was a big deal. And I think that was the beginning phases of me growing into who I am now. And so having Charo push more responsibility on me, even in just making small decisions, and sometimes I would just go to him for his take on it. And he would always be like, okay, just make a decision or do whatever, or what you think, and sometimes, I would make a decision and he would still come back and say, no, he wants this, but it still made me feel like, okay, he understood that I am capable of making a decision and making a right decision without coming to him. I could come to him and like this week or last week, I came to him and I said, anyway, I made an executive decision on this. And he's like, way to go, good.
Good job. It worked.
So having a boss that can push you like that, it makes you trust yourself. And that helps to boost your ego, as in to say, okay, I can do this job.
Okay, I'm just going to go open the floor, so I'll allow you guys to ask your questions.
Good afternoon.
Say your name, where you're from.
My name is Vivian Benjumbo. I'm from Washington, D.C. So understanding that we're in this girl power stage, right? Especially in the U.S., I can speak to that because that's where I live. There's a lot forward movement with that. But even in that, have you all experienced challenges with other women in your arenas or your fields? Whether they don't believe in you or they just are against whatever you do, or it's just, even though you have your own niche, are they maybe intimidated and then try to push you out? How do you deal with those things, and how do you even possibly win them over so that you can still all be friends?
We don't have enough time to answer that question because that's a whole panel in itself. But, I think even before the whole women power movement, that it's just been that challenge with women to women just competing with each other. And I think that competition starts from, first of all, insecurities, lack of confidence, lack of self-worth, not knowing who they are, who you are as a woman, and your identity. And so you find that either in other people or you can't stand on your own. People always ask me, and I'm sure they ask Stacey and Talia the same, how are you so confident? What has made you like this? And that question is not a short, that answer is not a short answer. But there's always those challenges where women, they wish they were where you are. Or I wish I looked like her, or I wish I could be doing what she's doing, not knowing that I'm sure you have something about you that I probably wish I could be doing or that I could have, but I don't. And so there's that challenge of, Harrison talked about it earlier, female walking into a room and just automatically thinking, she don't like me. Well, why would you think that she don't like you? There's no way that I can walk into a room thinking that someone don't like me when I love me too much. As far as I'm concerned, everyone here like me. So there may be a surprise of maybe someone don't like me, and I'm like, really? You don't like me? Why? You want to say something? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, for me, so yeah, there is a lot of competition, fears, like jealousy, weirdness, et cetera, that happens. And so typically what I try to do is hold space for it or just sort of embrace it. So you can generally sense when someone has an issue with you. And so I remember when I was in a situation where I was being elevated, me and about three girls. It was four, but it went down to three. Three girls all started out at the same level, and I was slowly but surely being elevated. And they would just come back to me, and they would be like, if you ever get an email from me, when I sign off on my emails, I'm always like, smile, Stacey. Like, I always just say that. And one girl got an email from me, and she was like, you're so sarcastic. And I was like, I really think you should smile. Like, and so no matter what I did, she was just like, you're always like humming and prancing around like nothing's wrong. Like, I mean, she just was like going in on just basic things about my personality. And so one day I just was like, you don't like me. That's okay, right? And she was just like, what? And I just held space for it. I'm like, it's okay that you don't like me, but you don't have to look at my email signature and try to make a problem out of it. That makes you look ridiculous. Like, don't do that. So I really, through communication, like when that's going on, like I get that that's not about me, and I can be a vessel. I'm not gonna change my signature clothes. I'm not gonna stop humming. I'm not gonna stop being myself because my presence is intimidating to you. I'll just let you know that I'm aware of it and I'm okay with it. But I'm in a space in my life now where I can hold space for other people's issues. Not everybody. I don't do this with everybody, but obviously I'm going to be working with these women over an extended period of time. So it's just like, let's just address it. You don't like me, and I want you to know that it's okay. We don't have to be friends to do this work. And I tell people that a lot too, like, because I think as women, we want to be friends with everybody that we work with, but sometimes you just don't like a person's personality, and we need to be okay with understanding that your gift can still serve this purpose without us being friends. And then lastly, very, very, just have great boundaries. Get some boundaries.
Next question.
Good afternoon. Sydney Shedd. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. Stacey, you mentioned as being a woman kind of managing that and factor. So I was wondering if you guys could kind of share how you manage as a newlywed or your professional career and walking into your legacy, walking in your purpose, and managing being a mother and all of that kind of at once.
Being a newlywed, how do I manage that and my job?
Yes,
Kinda.
and kind of as you're walking into your legacy and kind of stepping into this new position.
Well, managing how my marriage ties in with that, because
She met her husband on the job. She did.
We choose on purpose.
yes, I mix a little business with pleasure, but yeah. So my marriage meshes very well with my job, because we don't work in the same building anymore together as much as we used to, but it works well together because he works for a ministry which is Farmers Faith Ministries. I work for Munroe Global, so we still have a tie even though we kind of don't, and he understands what I do at Munroe Global. He supports me. It's not like when conference time comes around, he's like, okay, I don't see you. He understands what I'm doing, and I understand what he's doing. So being able to, I think when two people understand and they complement each other, they support each other, it makes it easy. And a lot of that has to do with talking and communicating before you get married. So you can know, okay, I know this is what my wife is passionate about, this is my husband is passionate about. So when you get married and these things are actually happening, it's communication happening, so you can understand what my wife is doing, what my husband is doing. So, and he supports me, I support him, and that's also important.
My and factor is working in ministry and working in the secular world. And one thing I like about and is it meshes and fuses things together. It just does. It's all mixed up. And so for me, I don't switch between secular and then now I'm here doing ministry, so now I'm switching. No, I'm a social worker by profession, but I still use those same skills and principles in the ministry. It all has to do with serving people, which is where my passion lies. And so there isn't much challenge between the two other than just time. You know, I would like to do both of them, and God has given me the opportunity to be able to have the best of both worlds for now. I know eventually I'm going to have to give up one. I know which one it's going to be, but I'm not ready, and neither, and I assume neither is he, because he hasn't said, you know, now is the time for you to do that. So I'm enjoying working in the secular world and bringing ministry to work, and then also doing ministry.
So I want to give you a mechanic to be able to manage the and it's something that I do with my son. So first I figure out all of the roles that I need to fulfill. Like I'll literally be like, I'm a mom, I'm a speaker, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, etc. Like I'll list all those roles and then I'll prioritize them against the goals that I have for that particular year, season of my life, and then I will busy myself about making sure that there's alignment with that. So to sort of give you an example, like with my son, his 3 roles, and we talked about this because he just transitioned into high school, and so things looked a little different when he was in junior high, but his 3 roles are to be my son, to be a student, and then to be a football player. And so when he really started to take off with football, it kind of started with him slacking in school. And so I remember he came to me one time and he's just like, you know, Mom, you know, the school thing is your thing. Like, that's not my thing. Like, you expect for me to be a straight A student, and that's a lot of pressure. And I just don't think that you should be holding me to these standards. And so I go back and I'm saying, okay, son, but your responsibility in life right now is to be my son, to be a student, and to be a football player, and Mom's not going to have a stupid football player. So if you can come to me with this presentation, surely we can get these grades up, right? So, and every time something comes up, we go back to these 3 primary roles. Now, when he transitions out of high school and he becomes a college student, he'll probably maybe still have sort of a little bit of that order, but as he's transitioning, when it bumps up that being a husband over being my son first, and that will shift, like the management changes. So I think it's important for you to figure out like what are the primary roles that you have to fulfill so you know what your ands are, and then prioritize them against your goals, and then get really comfortable, as Charles said, with your no, and say no. Like my ands right now are me being a mom, me being a speaker, and then me serving in the ministries that I have at Ambassadors Worship Center. So when people come for me on any of these things, if it takes me outside of these ands, I say no, because that's what this season is about. And then you just communicate over and over, like, I couldn't be here unless my son, his father, my mother, and a whole village of people knew that I was here. I can't just pop to the Bahamas and pop back home. I can't do that. These last 5 weeks, I've been traveling quite a bit. It's all communication, but everybody knows that the role of me being a speaker is a significant part of my and. So when I come to them and I say, hey, Mom's gonna be gone for a week, this is what this looks like, this is who's gonna be here, my son is like, okay, that makes sense, because your responsibility is to be a mom, a speaker, and serve your ministry at church. And I'm like, thank you, baby, I appreciate that. Does that help?
Good evening, my name is Danielle. So my question for you ladies, I don't know if you've experienced this, but how do you remain aggressive or assertive and still be feminine? Because I think I fight with that sometimes. I don't know if it's a short complex, but, but I'm often told that you could be so aggressive. And it's just because I'm kind of like no nonsense. So if something is supposed to, just do it, like just let's not waste time. But yeah, how do you still remain feminine but still be assertive and aggressive?
Well, I don't think assertive means loud and obnoxious. I feel like I said earlier, assertiveness is just being confident and getting your point across, and it doesn't mean that you have to be louder or boisterous or anything like that. Being assertive just means you're confident, you're saying exactly what you want. You might say it in a commanding tone, but that's still okay. But that doesn't take away the fact that you're a lady. As women, sometimes we have to assert ourselves to get our point across, and that's fine. It doesn't take away from you being a lady. So as long as you're not loud and vulgar and boisterous, it's fine.
I think for me, and this is probably not going to be PC, so I'm just going to take that tropical fish back and give you the truth, okay? I fully embrace all of the things about being a woman, and I strategically use them to my advantage. So I know that I do not have any hair. Sometimes I forget, but I know that I don't have any hair. So to ensure that no one is ever mistaken about my identity, I really make sure that my attire is very feminine, because I don't want to ever be mistaken for being too bold or brash because of a hairstyle that I'm wearing. So I make that accommodation in what I wear. You saw what I wore yesterday. It's like flowy and this, like it's pants, but is it a dress? Is it a cape? I don't know. know, like, you know, like, but that is a strategic decision. I know I have curves. I know which bits and pieces of appropriately of my body will add the feminine air to tone down what could otherwise be a very masculine appearance. I know that I'm also very competent, very articulate, and I talk quite a bit. So as a woman, I try to make sure that when I'm talking, I'm like how Ms. Talia said, like I'm not screaming and yelling, because I can get pretty passionate, and when that happens, I can get loud, but I'll make it a point to keep it right here, because I know that that is a more soothing way to speak. And I think a lot of people don't, you know, like, and this is probably because I was educated in a single sex environment where like all things women, they're just like, explore, figure yourself out. I don't have this issue of like, well, I shouldn't wear a dress because that's what's expected of me. It's like, no, I'm gonna wear a dress because I don't have any hair, and I want you to know that I am all woman underneath all of this. Like, you know, like we need to be okay with that, because sometimes like my friends will be like, no, I'm gonna wear a pantsuit because then they're gonna take me seriously. It's like, if they don't take you seriously in a dress, they're not gonna take you any more seriously in a pantsuit. So I say that to say, use the things that we have because we are women to your advantage strategically, and play those against some of the parts of you that you feel are aggressive. So like, for example, if you are aggressive in networking, make your card something beautiful. Like, does that make sense? Like if your handshake's aggressive, your pitch is aggressive, and then they get a lovely card, it's like, oh, look at that. You know, and then it softens it up. It adds that nurturing element. If you are aggressive when you are in a business meeting, instead of sitting when you're talking, like stand up and like walk and like the swaying and like all of those little sort of strategic things that we can do as women, I highly encourage women to incorporate that, especially now where we are so empowered and we do get to be so assertive and it is so rah-rah. It's like, be strategic, like, and be okay with that. I don't know if this is being broadcast, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's okay.
Well,
It's all right.
there you
That's
go.
what it's for. I'm glad.
Because it's just, you can't say that
Yeah,
anymore. Like, you can't say like,
I'm with you.
okay, all right.
You're good.
And attitude is key. You know, I'm going to use two examples, and a lot of people can relate. My mom and my aunt, two sisters, the complete opposite. Both feminine, both females, there's no mistake about it. Both assertive in their own right. My mom, she was quiet, she was reserved, but like I said, when she opened her mouth, she had something to say. It was assertive, it was articulate. My aunt, and you know, my mom was always, no matter what she said, it'll come across assertive, but it would be very soft-spoken. But when she spoke, depending on her attitude, you would know that she was no nonsense, and she would not have raised a voice, no octave higher, absolutely nothing. My aunt, on the other hand, I could be in one room, my aunt is in a different room, and I hear her aggression. I hear her assertiveness. But it didn't take away from who they were as females. It didn't take away from their femininity, from their femininity. You know, they were different in their own right. So you're gonna be different. Your attitude is going to be different. I'm going to be different. My attitude is going to be different. But we can still be strong. We can still be assertive. And I want to stay away from the word aggression, because aggression tends to connotate something negative. Assertive just means you're strong. It just means that, you know, you're no nonsense. And Talia said a perfect word today that someone retaliated back to me and called me after lunch. That's that bossy Munroe. I said, you get it right. And it was because out of just getting order, trying to get you guys over here on time for 1:15. So I had to come back again. And me just standing there, very soft-spoken. I don't know if you were in the room. And I said, okay, guys, it's 1:15, it's time to go. Everyone got up like a choir. And everyone came in here. I didn't shout. I didn't raise my foot. I'm still wearing the same dress, looking as beautiful as I am. But I moved the crowd. And so it all depends on attitude and confidence.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies. Mick Godson, Ben Jumbo. I am in Portland, Oregon. My sister asked a question about challenges being women and encountering other women. I'm going to ask the flip side of that is being women encountering men. Knowing that glass ceilings are being broken all over the place. Adding to that you're all black. In corporate America, they say you have to work twice as hard to get half as far. And I'm sure it's 3 or 4 times if you're a black woman to get, you know, that half as far. I guess my question is, what ask would you make of the men that you encounter as you're shattering these glass ceilings to, I don't know, stay out of your way or advocate or you know, be there to champion the cause of women advancing forward in corporate and, you know, nonprofit or business structures?
Okay, I'll give you guys 30 seconds each. Ready? Go.
Can you simplify that question or say it again?
What ask would you make of men that you encounter? What would you desire of the men that you encounter? Maybe some that stand in your way, or those who would want to support women in their efforts to advance in corporate structures and business world.
I don't have a lot of experience with men not being supportive. Actually, men are like my greatest supporters in terms of me moving forward professionally. And even when I was in doing more consulting HR work, I did not find the issue of like competition, concern, barrier, you can't, you won't. I did not find that in my profession. So unfortunately, I can't say something else that I would ask, but maybe what were they doing? They were just, I mean, you guys are really supportive. So I don't know. I don't think that I have an opinion to add there.
For me, it's if I can ask women to be more supportive of females. You know, men. Oh, I actually enjoy working with men. Whether they were my bosses, whether they were over me, under me, same level, it's actually easier to work with men than it is to work with someone who's just like me. Because as far, you know, they think they have the same attitude, they have to compete, I have to be better than her, there's always competition. And then for men, to be very honest with you, men are coming to the point where they're actually respecting us. Whether they're respecting us because they have a wife, a mother, a daughter, they're respecting us for that reason, or they're respecting us because we have done something to gain their respect and gain their trust and then actually keep it. And so, you know, just to ask men to just keep respecting, because once they keep respecting us, we're going to automatically respect them. And that is the relationship that you need to continue to harbor in any arena.
I agree with Charisa. I think a lot of more competition comes between when it's a woman and then a man and a man. But I haven't experienced any negativity or anything when it comes from men. Personally, I've always, like Stacey said, I've always had supportive men in my life that push me forward. So yeah, I would, like Charissa said, I would continue to say, you know, just continue to push us, continue to encourage us. And I think that also a man likes to see a successful woman that's actually pushing and doing. So I think for a man, it's normally their first instinct to be like, okay, I like that, I see you. So I think that's kind of the take when I see a man.
I mean, it's hard to not support the three of us. Now, you could have three different women sitting up
Good
here,
answer.
and you get a whole different answer. But for us, because of just who we are, our personalities, our attitudes, I mean, you can't help but love and support. And so I think that's why we get the love from men and the hate from women. And hey, that's okay.
I think what happens with a woman, you know, when she sees another woman doing something well, it automatically makes her look at herself like, okay, am I doing what she's doing? So it automatically not jealous, but it makes her examine herself a little bit more, which brings about a hint of competition. So I think that's where it comes in with women.
Okay, we'll take one more question.
Ooh, I actually had three.
You got one.
Can I just actually 3 questions and one? Okay, one question. I need to.
I'm sorry, sir.
Can I ask one to the other, one to the third?
We're over time, sir.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
All right. What are your biggest, like, what's your number one fear in the workplace as it relates to how you want people to see you? For instance, for me, starting the company, my biggest fear was for someone to question my work ethic. And it had nothing to do with race. It was all because of my age. I was young, coming in as a manager, and you know, my peers were with the company 25 years, right? So my biggest thing is I felt like I overcompensated for the fact that I was young by like always going extremely above and beyond. You want 2 things, I will give you 20 things, right? And I had to learn over time how to kind of adjust that because I was wasting a lot of time. What would you say would be your fair and?
No.
So my biggest fear, we actually were discussing this over lunch, because I'm a public figure and I'm building a public profile, like my biggest fear is that if people see me in my regular life, that they, because of the expectation and the impression that you gather from seeing me on stage, that you develop a different narrative about me because you see me doing something regular. Because I try to emphasize in like my posts and social media and why I write books, like I try to show people the human side of this process. Like to get up here to tell stories that connect with people around the world, like it means that I've lived some things, which means I'm a person too. So my biggest fear is that that public persona becomes something that causes me to curate my life in a way that I'm not living, or people shift my narrative. And like a really quick example, like yesterday, I went to the beach on the break and I'm in my swimsuit and I'm like, oh, I don't want to get out of the water. So I kind of just like body crawled across the sand, like crawled, and I'm like laying down, like rolling around and just being really silly and really goofy. And 2 conference attendees were like right there, maybe. But you know what I mean? So they see me up here and I'm like, I'm an emerging leader, get your purpose. And then you see me like beach whaling. And I don't want you seeing I have fun. I don't want you seeing that to take away from the value that I'm attempting to add to your life from this platform. And as a public figure, it is a very challenging thing figuring out how you're gonna curate your life that you're presenting in a way that's authentic and allows you to still preserve some privacy, but some authenticity and things like that. So that's my biggest fear as my life is growing.
My biggest fear working in the corporate world in America is getting lost. So America is this big pond with all these different small fish. And you know, you can do something and no one's gonna recognize. It's not gonna make the newspaper. Like Chow and I do stuff here where we're big fish in a small pond and we make the paper, you know. And so I remember my dad a couple years ago when he was asking me, so are you coming back home? I think we were just talking about goals and plans of what I want to do and not do. And I was like, I don't know. Oh, I know what it was. I was going through my process of getting my green card, working real hard. And so he's like, you're not gonna come back home? And I'm like, I don't know, I don't think so. He said, well, I want you to think about something. He said, I want you to think about, do you want to be a small fish in a big pond, or do you want to be a big fish in a small pond? And I told him, I said, you know, I want to be, in America, the pond is so great, but there's so much to get from there. There's so much to just take and steal and all the experiences that I can actually bring back. So my fear is just being in America and just kind of just getting lost in the pond and not being able to have my light so shine. And that be evident and exposed.
My biggest fear, well, it's not anymore, but coming into an organization, you know, in reference to Child, 2 of us coming in, young people, and, you know, like I said, people already feeling like, okay, Miles Monroe's son, Richard Pinder's daughter coming in, and they feel like because their parents are who they are, they could just come in and take over everything. So my biggest fear was us actually coming in, changing all this stuff and failing at it. Like, you know, after people already saying things and waiting for this to happen, I think a fear was us coming in and maybe feeling at what we were trying to do or not accomplishing what we wanted to accomplish. And like I said, it was my fear because we came in and we did the exact opposite. So that was a big fear I had, like stepping into what we were doing.
Thank you, sir.
He's like, I really.
Thank you all.
Just write your question down, because I'm so curious. I want to know.
Well, I mean, we are out of time. I would love to extend this panel, but and you know, Stacey, just to your point, where you know you're saying you sometimes have to dehumanize people's perception. Am I saying that right? People look at you. you have to there you go, dehumanize. That didn't make sense in my head. Yeah, but you have to humanize yourself sometimes because people see you on stage and, you know, they think you're this exact same person, you know, off the stage and whatnot. And that's the weirdest feeling because people would see me out and they'd be like, oh, you don't wear suits all the time. No, sir, I don't. I actually don't like to wear suits, but I look good in a suit, and so I wear it, you know. But I think I could relate to that. So any last words, being a woman in the 21st century, just give me your last thoughts, 30 seconds.
Being a woman in the 21st century, I would just tell each woman, just continue to excel, continue to emerge, continue to, if you haven't found your purpose, find your purpose, push towards it. Because, like I said, you know, we're moving past where women were inferior to men now. We're making strides. We're climbing the corporate ladder. So continue to educate yourself is important. Education is important. Continue to educate yourself and continue to make strides so that our children, the barriers will be completely gone.
And women, just embrace your womanhood. You know, whether you're older in the 21st century, you're coming up as a younger person in the 21st century, just embrace your womanhood. We have so much power. The influence that we have as women, men still don't understand. And they still don't grasp. And so we literally have to continue educating them so that they can continue to live in this world with us with understanding. And so know who you are and just embrace it and let it be exposed to the world.
Yes, understanding that in the 21st century, as women, we have the most amount of access to resources than any other time period in history. And so I would encourage you to take advantage of that access, because what that means is that we don't have to change our identity in order for us to become exactly who we were born to be. All we have to do is access those resources. So take advantage of that in this season. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.